Welcome, I'm the Kaiju no Kami here at Kumoricon 2019 with
Kelly Kane.
And we are interviewing
David Wald.
For anyone who might not know who you are or what you've been in, who are you and what have you been in?
I'm a voice actor and an ADR scriptwriter and a director. As an actor, probably the most well-known roles would be Gajil from Fairy Tail or Tetsu from My Hero Academia. Bulat from Akame ga Kill. Currently Mrs. Hudson from Case File Number 221 Kabuki Cho, Sherlock, anime. I don't know. I find that title's very complicated. But Mrs. Hudson. As a scriptwriter, I wrote scripts for season 2 of Diabolic Lovers. I wrote scripts for School Live or School Live, depending on which camp you're in. I wrote scripts for Love Stage and Hitorijime My Hero. As an ADR director, I've done Cutie Honey Universe, Tada Never Falls in Love. Just announced today, there's a dub coming of To Love Ru, and I will direct that as well, and I'm very excited about that. I directed dubs for Hitorijime My Hero and Love Stage and Bloom Into You and Kase-san and Morning Glories. Yeah. Does that about cover it?
I think...
You don't know if you're finished everyone? What the? Alright, we're out of here. The viewers don't care anymore.
Exactly.
No, kind of just to get into it, because the one thing I really feel impassioned about is a couple of the series that you referenced, Love Stage, Hitojiri. Those are part of the LGBT community. And with our world as it is, there's so much division, as well as there's not enough representation. And how do you feel seeing so many more series now coming with that representation, but not enough at the same time?
Well, it fills me with delight.
Mm-hmm.
When I voiced, because the thing is, when I started working in anime, I knew virtually nothing about anime.
Sure.
All I knew was, I'd grown up watching Speed Racer at 6:30 on Saturday morning, waiting for Super Friends, right?
Yes.
And then Battle of the Planets, such a crush on Jason. What are you gonna do? So I knew virtually nothing about anime, and I certainly had no idea the amount of queer characters to be found therein. Of course, we weren't getting them in Speed Racer, so
No.
I knew nothing. And then I was cast by ADR director Kyle Jones to voice Bulat in Akame ga Kill. And Bulat was gay, it was canon, it was talked about, and then guess what? His homosexuality was not his main or only contribution to the narrative. And that was something I had never seen. Not in Western media or anywhere else. I'd never seen a character who was just gay and also, tall, brunette, left-handed. Who cares? You know what I mean? Gay was the only thing these characters had to contribute to their narrative. And then I meet Bulat, and I start asking around, and I find out these characters are peppered throughout anime. And not only that, but there's anime directly dedicated to queer storytelling, right? So I went looking, and I watched a lot of shows, and I found Love Stage, and I watched it. I was doing samples. I was just sampling shows, just checking them out and seeing, okay, that one's a little problematic, we got the age thing, this one, this is a bunch of people forcing themselves, a lot of kabe-dan, and I found a lot of it a little problematic. Still glad to see it out there. But when I found Love Stage, I binged the whole thing. I started watching it and stopped and finished the whole thing in one night. And just my head was blown. And then I went to look it up and found out Sentai Filmworks had the license for it. I had no idea. So I started beating down doors, man, and finally, after 2 or 3 years of trying, I got a green light to get it done. Which was a huge surprise and a wild delight. And doing that material means a lot to me, because I grew up gay in the 80s in Texas under Reaganomics at the height of the AIDS crisis.
Yeah.
And I had nothing to look at to inform me of what my life could be, certainly nothing positive. And it hasn't gotten much better in American media.
It hasn't.
So, in fact, on that note that you were talking about, when it feels forced, do you feel that a lot of times when, because one issue I always talk about in social media is that when they go and start saying, oh, this show is bringing in this gay character, and at times the way they do it, it's like, well, that doesn't feel authentic because it feels like they're just doing it to pander, rather than letting this just be a character.
Tell you, one of the most amazing depictions of gay characters I've seen so far is actually Borderlands 3, in which I get to voice Wainwright Jacobs, who is the boyfriend of Hammerlock. And somehow these writers at Borderlands succeeded in doing something I've never seen American media succeed at. They rendered gay characters that weren't at all reductive. And when have you ever seen that? When have we ever seen that? And yet these characters live and breathe. And I was asking director Joel McDonald, who's here this weekend, and we were having this conversation this morning. I was like, how did you do it? How did you do it when even gay writers in Hollywood fail to make a character that's not reductive and whose only contribution isn't, well, I'm the gay character, right? What Joel said was essentially what they did was they wrote about the characters. They wrote about the love, not about the gay. And I wish more folks would cotton on to that one. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely, because I think it's important for kids, especially more so now. While there's a great deal and significantly more representation in the world than there was as a child also of the 80s that I saw for many of my friends and family.
Yep.
And so to see it now, I think it's important for kids to be willing to own it. And I think having that representation in whatever medium they enjoy, especially now more so in anime because it is so mainstream, that I think it's so valuable. And it's incredible, especially for yourself who has a platform, to be able to help remind and motivate all the young ones out there that they don't have to be afraid of who they are or who they love or what they want to be.
Yeah, you're not alone. If you're out there struggling with this, you're not alone. I went through it. People have been going through it since the dawn of man. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was very important to me when I learned of the prevalence of these stories in this medium, there was nothing I could do but see that it got featured and well rendered and authentically treated. Now it's finally happening after a long struggle, and it's to be found everywhere in anime. So it seemed that the way I could use whatever I had for the most potential good is to see these stories told. So it's become my central preoccupation. And everything else I do in anime basically serves that purpose. Keeps me in the business so that I can continue working on these stories. It's deeply meaningful to me. I see it as probably the most important thing I have ever or will ever do. And I'm really glad to see it finally starting to sort of take hold and catch on. And ultimately, my goal is to see myself rendered completely obsolete. Because I want everyone telling these stories. I would like for studios to not be so afraid of them anymore. Whether they're originating them in Japan or adapting them for English audiences here in America. There's so much fear,
And that's the thing that really I struggle with, especially for any of the students I work with as adults or developmentally disabled or any of my husband's students, is that there's this fear of still being bullied or objectified for being something that they are as a human being.
Yeah.
There should never be that struggle of, can I be one versus the other? You're a human being no matter what. And I absolutely value just the opportunities that you have given not only to the community but also for studios to recognize that you shouldn't be fearful of a property because you think it's going to be problematic or not sell because it's counterculture,
Mhm.
which I think in this day and age, there's no such thing as counterculture any longer.
Or it's all counterculture.
Absolutely.
I mean, anime is here's why anime is full of my people. Because it's one of the last bastions, you know, it's one of the last places to feel okay, where you don't have, it, you know, it's kind of the last bastion for the ostracized and the marginalized,
Yes.
you know what I mean? And these are my people. So it's important to me, and considering how much queer material there is out there to be found in anime, like it's I see it as my responsibility to see it featured. Otherwise I couldn't live with myself. To have access to material like this and not be doing everything I can to see it adapted for English audiences, like I couldn't live with myself.
No, I can absolutely agree with that, and I appreciate that wholeheartedly. Myself as an ally, and I know everyone else who's watching appreciates that 100%, because we need that support and that community.
We are running out of time, so what social media links can people find you at?
You will find me on the Facebooks and the Twitters, and I'm even on the Instagrams. I don't know my handle, but if you look me up by just like David Wald or David Wald VA, it's me you will find.
Well, I did look you up for David Wald, and I actually found this corporation where David Wald is the CEO of some kind of software technology.
I had no idea. Jeez. I better start looking in the mailbox for those checks.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much. I
Until
appreciate
next
it.
time, bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
And shalom.